Well, in Texas, he can keep his 30 pieces of silver. We will not yield to blackmail from the President of the United States.
Next on Newsmax Prime, reading, writing, and restroom reassignment. Obama orders all public schools to allow transgender students to use the bathrooms and locker rooms they prefer. But the Lieutenant Governor of Texas and other elected officials would prefer to keep things as they are. Meantime, the same administration that wants to open up school restrooms apparently wants to keep our southern border open for another huge influx of illegals. So why is the Obama team now claiming it will conduct more deportation raids? Where there's smoke, there's often a smoke screen. We'll clear the air and take your phone calls as Newsmax Prime starts right now. Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, Obama's gender bender. The White House wants every public school in America to open its bathrooms to transgenders. Miranda Kahn has more.
JD, it's battle time with Texas now becoming the latest state to take on the Obama administration.
We will not yield to blackmail from the President of the United States.
Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick joins the fight of the states versus the federal government. The decision comes after the Obama administration sent this directive requiring schools to allow all transgender students to use bathrooms and locker rooms consistent with their gender identity.
The challenge here is not to isolate anybody. It's not to discriminate against anybody. It's not to make anybody unsafe. It's actually to ensure that our schools are as inclusive and respectful and safe as they can possibly be.
The directive comes just days after North Carolina fired this warning shot.
This is not just a North Carolina issue. This is now a national issue.
Since then, North Carolina and the U.S. Justice Department have filed dueling lawsuits.
This law provides no benefit to society.
Texas already joined a lawsuit in Virginia over transgender students using the bathrooms of their choice. And now the Attorney General of that state suggests that the Obama administration's new guidelines will result in yet another legal fight.
He has set a policy in place that will divide the country, not along political lines, but along family values and school districts.
And by standing up against the Obama administration, Texas risks losing $10 billion in federal education funding that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says mostly goes towards providing free meals to students. JD, back to you.
Thanks, Miranda. It's time now to remind you that we're counting on you. For the next hour, we'll be taking your calls at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Obviously, we're interested in hearing what you have to say. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're here to invite you to call and share your views because we truly are America's forum. Let's bring in our panel to discuss this and other issues. First, via Skype from Raleigh, North Carolina, Republican media strategist and ad maker Marc Rotterman. Marc served as a member of Ronald Reagan's transition team back in 1980. And tonight from Newsmax Washington, Brent Budowsky, who currently serves as a columnist for The Hill, but back in the day on Capitol Hill, he served as an aide to Texas Senator Lloyd Bentsen. Gentlemen, we welcome you both here to Newsmax Prime. We heard from Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick a bit earlier, but it's worth a second listen to some of his other comments this morning on the prospect of the Obama administration insisting that bathrooms be made and locker rooms be made available to transgenders. Let's look and listen.
The battle line has been drawn in a way that the president does not know the line he crossed this time. When you take on mom and dad in their homes, or the president threatens their children, he has made a huge mistake.
So Dan says the battle lines have been drawn, and it seems this is an issue that might break down demographically. Millennials on one side, baby boomers and older generations on the others. When we take a look at this, Is this a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist? And wouldn't it just serve to divide the generations more? First to you, Marc Rotterman.
Yeah, I think it is a solution and looking for a problem. Here's the deal. He wants to transform America. This mandate has no teeth at all. It's really cultural. He's overreaching. It may well play well in Manhattan, JD, but it's not going to play well in middle America. I think there's going to be a huge backlash.
Brent Budowsky, let me turn to you. Obviously, Lloyd Bentsen left us some years ago, but how do you think Senator Bentsen would react to this, being a Texan?
Yes.
He would probably say, that's my bad ear, I can't hear the question.
Well, okay, demographic. You tell us where you stand on this, and what is this just to engender, pardon the pun, engender a political fight for November?
Well, actually, I agree with Donald Trump's first position, where he pretty much said, let bygones be bygones and be tolerant. I had honestly did not give this issue 1 second thought until these latest rounds of statutes came from North Carolina and other states. I don't think it's going to be a voting issue. I think the Pew Foundation did a major study of people in the middle class getting creamed, too many of them becoming poor. People are worried about their jobs. The economy may be slowing. The jobless claims are back almost to 300,000. The weak jobs report that we got last week is a warning sign. Those are the issues that are going to determine it. To answer your question directly, I tend to agree with the president. I don't have a heck of a lot of enthusiasm about it, but I don't think it's going to be a voting issue.
Well,
I think the voting issue is going to be jobs and income and people hurting and worried about the economy.
All right, fair
down.
enough. Let's take this to America. Watching tonight from Radcliffe, Iowa, Anna is on the phone. Anna, your take on transgenders and restrooms in schools.
Yes, if you think hi everyone, I've always been Democrat. I am now Republican this year, so I am for Trump. Now to go on as far as the bathrooms, if you think back of when you were in high school and you think of the jokesters of how the boys would act and maybe some of the girls, oh, I'm transgender, and just be able to go in there, to be able to come out and have a laugh.
So what you're saying is it could be, and you categorize it as a laugh or a prank or a kind of, well, adolescent behavior here, but it does, in another sense, unravel discipline in the schools, does it not?
Yes. It's when you go in and you think about it, it's not only a laugh, I mean, sometimes it's malicious.
Yeah, well, it sets up a very dangerous situation in terms of the fact that, it goes beyond pranks because it brings an unsettling situation to a question that heretofore has been answered. Anna, checking in tonight from Radcliffe, Iowa, we really appreciate your call. Now back to our panel, and we should point out that the White House was quick to frame this as something that just has widespread support. Here's Josh acting as if he's earnest.
The vast majority of schools and school districts and school administrators across the country will welcome this guidance and will implement it. For those that don't, there's an established process for them to raise any concerns that they may have. The vast majority of schools and school administrators will incorporate this advice as they confront the challenge of ensuring that they're promoting the kind of respectful, safe learning environment that can ensure the success of all of their students.
All right, so there is Josh Earnest. Even though by studies less than 0.3% of America identifies with a gender switch, this is something that is being done. Marc Rotterman, again to the political angle on this. The White House decided to push this, and I guess Mr. Obama believes that somehow he's going to trap Republicans because you know we got to be ready to hear now from the New York Times, the LA Times, and the Alphabet networks. Oh, the Republicans might overplay their hand. Can you hear that chorus starting?
I sure do. I think Obama's overplaying his hand, JD. I think it's going to drive out our base. I think it's going to drive out Republicans. It's going to drive out evangelicals. It's going to be an issue in North Carolina. I think it's going to be an issue in Texas. And everywhere they try to pull this, people are going to reject this just out of hand. I don't think there's any question about it. I don't see how it contributes to a, quote, learning environment either.
Tell you what, we got a couple of minutes left in the segment, and those 2 minutes are going to go to Patsy, who joins us via telephone from Pocatello, Idaho. Patsy, what's your take on this?
Boy, I could say a lot, but just to make the bottom line, that stupid jerk in the White House and that stupid Hillary, they both have a lot to be desired. We have enough of problems on our hands to solve instead of worrying about the bathrooms, because it's a dirty shame. We're in America, for God's sakes. Tell them to go in the bushes. And another thing, Trump, keep up your good talking and don't let these so-called men get you down. Just keep right on going the way you are and fire the whole bunch and start out anew.
All right, Patsy.
For that guy, what's his name?
Understood, Patsy. We appreciate your perspective. And Brent, there you hear the kind of intensity that Mark referred to right before we took the call. This is going to galvanize social conservatives. And again, just in terms of where we are in society, it may work with the elites on both coasts, but what is called flyover country, this issue ain't going over their heads. They're taking it to heart. Tell you what, Brent, we'll give the last 45 seconds to you.
Well, first of all, what I wish the president had done, is if he's going to take the position, is not make a public spectacle out of it. I don't think that was necessary, even if one agrees with them. And let me say, I totally respect people on both sides of this issue. Feelings are intensely held. There is merit from the position of both sides in the stand that they take. And I respect that. I respect everybody on this. I'll repeat it, though. The base in both parties is going to turn out. It isn't just the conservative base. Trust me, when you look at what Donald Trump is doing by the hour, the liberal base, Hispanics, a lot of women and others, they're going to be turning out, too. So this is going to be a wash on that level. And we're going to return to the kind of president we want, the kind of president Trump would be and Hillary would be, the economy, jobs, lifestyle, the things that are affecting people's lives every day in their jobs and in their families.
Fair enough.
Transgender will not be one of the top 10 issues, I promise.
The key word is return. I would ask you both to return, and those of you watching, stay with us. There's more ahead right after this. As we all prepare for the weekend, there are some political feuds that never seem to end. While Donald Trump and Paul Ryan appear to be in the process of a Republican reconciliation, Ryan's predecessor continues to attack one of Trump's former foes for the nomination. John Bachman chronicles the latest in the spat between former House Speaker John Boehner and Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
Well, JD, John Boehner has not exactly been shy about telling America how he feels about Ted Cruz. But what was so revealing about his discussion in Las Vegas at the SALT conference was why he decided to support Donald Trump.
Thank God that that guy from Texas didn't win.
There's another jab from former House Speaker John Boehner thrown at Ted Cruz, this time at the Skybridge Alternatives Economic Conference in Las Vegas.
Lucifer in the flesh.
That was the last time the topic of Ted Cruz came up when John Boehner was on stage. Even then, the former House Speaker went on to say that he was pulling for Donald Trump in the GOP primary.
And then yesterday, John Boehner said Donald Trump is his texting and golfing buddy.
Boehner's backing of Trump certainly wasn't the deciding factor in Cruz's final downfall, but it showed that an insurgent candidate like Trump could appeal to an establishment dinosaur like Boehner. Even still, party unity is very much in jeopardy. Boehner's comments also show he's still holding a grudge over Senator Cruz's role in shutting down the government over Obamacare 3 years ago.
I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam, I am.
This whole idea that we're going to shut down the government to get rid of Obamacare in 2013, this plan never had a chance.
Shortly after he announced he was stepping down as Speaker, Boehner hinted that the 2013 shutdown was the beginning of the end of his speakership. but not his influence, not entirely. Thursday, Boehner was asked if he agreed with some of Trump's more controversial policies.
No.
He also admitted that Trump is not his first choice to be the nominee, but right now, the Republican Party only has one choice left, and that's to make sure they win the White House in November.
The point is that while I was for some other people, they didn't win. And Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. And we as a party are going to have to figure out, all right, how do we get our act together? How do we get on the same page? And how do we win?
Well, today, Ted Cruz is trying to make the best of the situation. He sent out this fundraising email, JD, asking people for money based on Boehner's comments. He says this is just another sign that the establishment in Washington has learned nothing over the past year. So there you go, Ted Cruz trying to fundraise off of John Boehner's most recent comments. Back to you.
Thanks, John. And of course, Ted is trying to fundraise for a Senate race as he announced his intention to try keep that United States Senate seat from Texas. We want to keep your comments coming, and so we're asking you to call us at 1-877-Newsmax. That's 1-877-639-7629. Lots to talk about, and we'll continue with our panel. From Raleigh, North Carolina, Republican media strategist Marc Rotterman, and from Newsmax, Washington, Brent Budowsky, a columnist for The Hill. But right now on the telephone from Missoula, Montana, let's welcome in PJ. And PJ, I understand you want to talk about Trump and Republican unity for November.
Absolutely. I am a progressive Democrat, J.D. Hayworth, I might say right out front. And yes, I believe that Mr. Trump really should define his domestic policy proposals and his foreign policy proposals. And I believe that if he would do this in a coherent and cogent manner, that his fellow Republicans might even find a basis to agree with him so that they can pull the party together. You know,
so now I just want to get this straight. You're saying this as a progressive Democrat in what, the interest of good government, to give Republicans a fighting chance in November, or you just believe whatever the right embraces would be the wrong prescription for America?
Oh, no. I can allow for other people to have their opinions about.
Well, sure, and we all do, and that's why we're so happy we called in. And while you have the right to the secret ballot, I'm just kind of curious. Any chance you're going to pull the lever for the Republican nominee in November?
Not a chance.
All right. Well, listen. Let's see what a fellow Democrat has to say about this. PJ, Brent Budowsky. There is soup for the soul, chicken soup for your soul. There, a progressive taking time to call in and join you with your skepticism about Mr. Trump.
Well, there are some smart people in Missoula, Montana, and we just heard from one of them. No, the honest truth is we don't know what Donald Trump believes about anything, because what Trump believes on Monday is not what he believes on Tuesday. What Trump believes in 1991 is not what he believes in 2016.
That's interesting, Brent. Well, I appreciate that, because your big concern is inconsistency. Now, Marc Rotterman, in all those liberal historical tomes we would read from James McGregor Burns about FDR, it was the very fact that he would never stay in place that was part of his genius, the lion and the fox. So I guess our friends with the Democrat label want to have it both ways. It was cool for FDR, but we loathe anyone else who might be flexible in that regard. Your take, Mark?
Well, I think that's right. And let's be clear. Trump is outlining what he's for. He had a great foreign policy speech. He's basically embracing supply-side economics. He wants to defeat ISIS. And by the way, JD, I think the party is unified. I don't think there's any question about it. Our old friend Lindsey Graham even had a good talk with Mr. Trump.
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate the perspective from Bozeman. I tell you what, Brent, to show you a fair guy I am, I could tell you're a little, you didn't like my analogy with the FDR thing. So take a minute to say something about that. It's okay.
Now, Franklin Roosevelt was governor of New York, and he had a whole set of policies to deal with the Depression that began in 1929 when he was still governor. He had 3 years in office before, so he knew what he wanted to do. Yes, he was sly as a fox. There's no doubt about that.
But
Donald Trump is a double dealer who can't stick to the same position Will he release his taxes that'll show us whether he's lying about his wealth or telling the truth? I dare him.
All right, there is the gauntlet thrown down by Brent Budowsky to the Donald right now. I tell you what, we're going to pick up another telephone call, and we go out to my old stomping grounds, the one-time territorial capital of Arizona, Prescott. From Prescott, Arizona tonight, we've got Cindy on the line. Hi, Cindy. Cindy, you got to turn down the television, pick up the phone. There's a delay here that we'll have to deal with. We'll try to get back to Cindy in just a second. Let me go to some other vagaries of what's happening here, and that has to do with the candidate on the other side of the aisle, one Hillary Rodham Clinton. Now, earlier today on television, DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz was asked about whether Secretary Clinton is taking the FBI investigation seriously. And Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz offered an answer that actually seemed to offer more questions. Listen.
I think it's important to underscore that Secretary Clinton isn't even a target of this inquiry, investigation, whatever I word you want to use. This election is going to be decided.
How do you know that?
Because I've repeatedly been told that. I mean, my understanding is that Secretary Clinton is not the target of this investigation.
Has the
inquiry, whatever you want to call it.
Has the FBI shared that with you?
I am only repeating what my understanding is.
Well, yeah, the question is there. Now, we mentioned John Boehner earlier, and you see this from Newsmax.com, our parent website. He was weighing in that same speech he gave today, or that conversation in Las Vegas, saying he wouldn't be surprised if Clinton has to withdraw and Vice President Biden might parachute in. So let me go to Brent on that. Is Hillary the keeper, or are you worried about this email thing, Brent?
Oh, I think every Democrat who's going to be honest, which I am with our audience, in the back of our minds, we will be more relieved when that thing is disposed of. If Comey decides not to recommend a prosecution, I think he probably won't. But any Democrat that doesn't tell you they're worried about that isn't telling you the truth. I would add, it isn't just Joe Biden, it's John Kerry is out there as well, who would be my candidate. I don't think that's going to happen. But of course, Hillary's taking it seriously. And of course, Democrats are worried. Even if it's not a prime threat with a high likelihood of happening, you have to be an idiot not to worry about it, just in case.
All right, I got another caller I want to get to from Henryville, Indiana. Trish is on the line. Trish, you've got 30 seconds. Make them count.
Yes, they're talking about dropping Joe Biden in. How can he possibly be dropped in when he hasn't gone through, the debates and all of that? I think the Obama administration wants Hillary not to succeed.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
what I think.
Yeah, okay. Well, what about that? What do you think, Marc Rotterman? You're no stranger to some interesting internecine warfare, so we're looking at the Dems. 15 seconds to comment on what Trish has to say.
Well, look, I think Hillary's in Watergate territory. I do think she's going to be indicted. They like to parse words, call it an inquiry. Comey says it's an investigation. One of her main aides stormed out of the inquiry or investigation.
And we don't mean to storm out right now, but our time is up. Marc Rotterman, Brent Budowsky, thanks. Coming back to Talk the Border with Glenn Spencer and Tom Tancredo.